I'm back again with another video, and today we're going to talk about and review the film Nobody, 2021 film starring Bob Odenkirk. And it was nice to go back to the theater. I mean, I had not been to a theater about a year and a half. I think the last film I saw in the theater was Joker. So it was nice to go back, and even though I was the only one there, but to have my large popcorn and large soda and just sit back and enjoy a movie. And I had seen previews of this film beforehand. And I'm like, okay, that looks fun. It gives me vibes of the John Wick films. And at the end of the day, I enjoyed this. To me, it was straightforward. It moved at a good pace. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. But the plot here with this film, you have our main character, this character Hutch, played by Bob Odenkirk. And Bob Odenkirk, he's from the Better Call Saul TV show, which is a spinoff of Breaking Bad. I haven't seen much of the show, but Bob Odenkirk here, he's this mild-mannered father, and they kind of touch on, in the beginning, his routine that he set in this routine of waking up, taking out the trash, taking a shower, go to work, come back, eat supper, sleep, repeat. So they kind of show us that a little bit in the beginning. And then one night, these two thieves, they break into his house, and his son gets attacked, but the father doesn't really fight back. Like, he declines to defend himself and his family. And the thieves, they take off, and from there, the family's disappointed in the main character that, why didn't you defend our family? And even his neighbors like, hey, if they would have broken into my house, I would have, taken care of him. So they somewhat drift away from the character a little bit. Our main character, Hutch, Bob Odenkirk's character. But apparently what had happened when the thieves broke into his house, they stole his daughter's kitty cat bracelet. And from there, this long simmering rage in our main character just turns on like that. And our main character is set on finding his daughter's kitty cat bracelet. So he's tracking down, the thieves that he had broken into his house and propelling him on this path of, rage. And so he finds, the thieves. And along the way, you have this one scene on this bus where the main character is sitting in the back of the bus. And I like this line of dialogue in the film where he says, whenever God closes the door, another one opens. Please, God, open up that door. Because these guys that are out of control and probably drunk, are about to get on the bus. And I like the sort of build-up of the main character. He's waiting for these guys to come in. And that something's about to happen. So these guys that come onto the bus, they start to pick on this little girl. And the main character, he clears out the bus. And even the driver's like, what are you doing? And that's when the main character, Hutch, he looks at these guys, empties the gun. He's like, I'm about to fuck you up. And beats him up, takes care of him. But apparently, one of the guys on the bus is the brother of a villain, our main villain in the film, this Russian character, in which later on the brother would die. So our villain here, it wants to go after our main character. And he's trying to find information and track our main character down, but he can't find a lot of information because he's a nobody. Hence the title of the film. Which you get a little bit of background on the main character, but they don't go too deep into it. They kind of hint at a little bit that his character worked for the government, perhaps. But again, they don't go in too deep on his origin, background. And, throughout the film, you have some of the characters. His wife is played by Connie Nielsen. His father, the main character's father, is played by Christopher Lloyd. His boss is played by Michael Ironside. Yeah, Richter from Total Recall. I'm like, hey, this is Michael Ironside. Where's he been at? And they have this kind of subplot where the main character's in contact with this one guy on this radio at his workplace that, you know, knows more about the character. And so, you know, when you have our main villain here, you know, he's after the main character for killing his brother. Again, it becomes revenge. And so the main character knows that he's being pursued by our main villain here. And he has to, you know, stop him pretty much. And that's kind of the plot here. And so, yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this film. And, you know, same director, which I had found out before I saw the film, but this director is the same guy that directed Hardcore Henry, which I enjoyed. And you have the same writer of the John Wick films, this guy, Derek Kostad. And now apparently I know he's not writing John Wick 4 and 5, but yeah, the same writer of the John Wick trilogy, and you have the director of Hardcore Henry. And, you know, the film, it moved at a fast pace. I think it's about an hour and a half. And to me, you know, when the film starts, it keeps going. And, you know, okay, when I look at the cast, you know, Bob Odenkirk, I thought he was really solid. I mean, if you compare it to the John Wick films, of course, I would say I prefer Keanu more, even in terms of action. And I'll talk about the action. But for what Bob Odenkirk did here in the film, I felt he was really solid. Now, I will say in the beginning I wasn't sure, because, you know, it's a little bit, I would say there's a little bit of build-up in the beginning, because you kind of wonder, okay, where's this going? But as the film moves along, and, you know, really once it starts, it keeps going. And I thought Bob Odenkirk, again, I thought he was really solid here. You know, good supporting cast of Connie Nielsen, who's his wife in the film. You know, Christopher Lloyd. He's in the film for a little bit. And he's actually in the third act, which I'll talk about, but that was fun. And Michael Ironside, even though he's not in the film too much, it was cool to see him as the main character's boss. So, yeah, Richter. So the cast, you know, to me works. And you have this one character, again, he's kind of in touch with, and if I get the actor's name up, yeah, I had to go to IMDb real quick. This character, played by RZA, he's in touch with the main character through a radio, and you know, he would come into play later. But I thought he was good in the film for what he had. But when he does show up, so again, Bob Odenkirk I thought was really solid. Now talking about the action scenes, you know, the moment where the main character's on the bus. And these guys, they come onto the bus, and you know something's about to happen. And when the fights happen, you know, it's hard hitting. Definitely has a, you know, rawness to the fights, you know, that can give you vibes of the John Wick films. But I think here, because the main character is a father, and it's where from the moment that his daughter's kitty cat bracelet is stolen, that rage, you know, unleashes. And they kind of touch on here with the main character, you know, like he would get hurt more. Like you see with the John Wick films, you know, Keanu, when his character gets hurt, you know, he comes right back up. And he gets right back up and he fights again. And, you know, they kind of do that here too with the main character. But there's moments where it takes him a little bit longer to regain his composure, you know, to sort of get himself back up. So I like that little bit of a difference between, this and the John Wick films where, the main character here, again, because he's a father, that he hasn't done this sort of thing in a while. So, it takes a little bit for him to sort of get back up. But once he does, he gets right back up and, he still fights. And the fight on the bus was fun. Spoiler alert, there's a moment where this one guy, one of the guys that he had killed on the bus, or he left, but I think he had like crushed his throat or something like that, and the guy's laying there on the floor, and the main character takes a knife, like a trachea, cuts open his throat right here, and then sticks like a straw right here. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen that before, and I thought it was fun. And you get some stuff in the middle, the second act, a little bit of action, but it's mostly, again, our main villain trying to track down our main character, and then when you get to the third act of the film, and I will say I like this moment where the main character talks to the villain in this club, and he's like, you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. Let's end it here. Because he's sitting there with a bomb. Like, I think it's it may have been a C4 or something like that. Or, but the main character's like, he's sitting there one-on-one with, the main villain. And he had told him, look, I burned all your money. I've burned everything. Let's end it right here. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. And, I mean, of course, that's not going to happen. But when the main character, leaves, he notices that the bad guys are right behind him. So, that's where it gets into the third act of the film, where the main character, he had bought out his workplace, and he has all these traps set up. And, the third act is fun. Where, again, the bad guys, they come to the workplace of the main character. And I know I'm kind of describing a lot here with the plot, and I'm getting into some spoiler territory, but, again, well, I've already described the plot, so I'm talking about the action. But again, the third act is fun. Even Christopher Lloyd gets in there with a shotgun in the third act. I'm like, Doc Brown is in the action here. And there's a moment even in the film, and again, spoiler alert, I know I'm giving away stuff here, but because the main character's dad is in a nursing home, there's a scene where a couple of guys, they try to off Christopher Lloyd, and they think he's sleeping, and then he wakes up, and he takes out both with a shotgun. So I'm like, hey, Christopher Lloyd's here with a shotgun, killing people, and taking out villains. So you get that in the third act. And they don't kill off Christopher Lloyd or anything. I'm like, hey, that's cool. Doc Brown wielding a shotgun, but so when the action does happen, it's hard hitting. And while you could say, I mean, again, if you compare to the John Wick films, I would say they have more action. But for what this film did, I felt the action was still good. It was still enjoyable. I would say the third act, if there's one nitpick that I have with the third act of the film, it kind of feels like it was rushed a little bit. Like, you saw the character build these traps, and they do show the traps in the third act when they happen. But it just feels like a little bit that maybe they could have taken their time with the third act, like it was over before I know it. I don't know, it's just, I still enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like maybe it felt a little bit rushed, but it was still good. So I'm trying to think what else to mention here. I mean, again, it's a straightforward movie. I mean, it moves at a good pace. Again, it's about an hour and a half. I like some of the song choices. Even there's a moment in here where he kills these bad guys, and the villains that are, yeah, because you have this one scene that happens early on where these bad guys break into his house, and he takes them out, and then later on you see the bodies. He has them on a couch in his basement, and he's talking to them, and that's a good little scene there, where he burns down his house. But yeah, I mean, so I know I'm spoiling some scenes here, but at the end of the day, when it all is said and done, I really enjoyed this. To me, it was straightforward, hard hitting. When the action does happen, it's really good, and no shaky cam. It's no quick cuts. I like the cast of Bob Odenkirk, again, really solid. Connie Nielsen was good. It was cool to see Christopher Lloyd in there, even wielding a shotgun. Michael Ironside, and I don't know why that character didn't show up in the third act, like, his boss, because the main character had bought out the place. It would have been cool to see Michael Ironside in the third act. And the way the villain gets it, I didn't even mention that. The comeuppance for the villain, I thought was fine. I mean, I don't know if I should spoil it, but I thought it was fine. I mean, okay, basically, I'll go ahead and spoil it. So for people who don't want to hear spoilers, I would say skip this part, or you might want to skip the whole review. Basically, the main character, Christopher Lloyd, and this other guy, they had just ran out of bullets, and the main character takes this bomb, tapes it to this bulletproof glass, and the villain, basically the main character takes that bulletproof glass with the bomb strapped to it, and he charges at the villain, and blows up, kills the villain, but the main character is sort of blown back from the explosion, and I thought it was fun. I mean, again, I can say, if there was like a nitpick or something like that, the third act, I think they could have taken their time a little bit, but that's just a small nitpick. I know people might say, well, you don't get much of a backstory or like an origin, or it's not explained fully what the character does or what have you, but they do touch on it. Sometimes you don't need everything to be explained. Sometimes you don't need, like, everyone wants to peel back the layers and has to know everything, and everything has to be explained. But to me, it was touched on good enough, and as long as it's straightforward. Like, to me, if it's straightforward, and if I believe in the main character, and I'm invested in the main character, then to me, that's all you need. You don't need to really dive deep into, the origin. That's what the John Wick films are for. That's what we have. That's why we have the John Wick trilogy. I mean, do I see this becoming a trilogy? No, I mean, I felt this film works on its own. Like, I felt Bob Odenkirk, again, I know I keep saying this, but, to me, is really solid. I don't know, if this needs a franchise. To me, it works on its own. But at the end of the day, overall, I still enjoyed it. So, but that's my review of Nobody. Hope you enjoyed this review. I know I kind of gave away some stuff here. But, yeah, definitely check it out. Go check it out. See it in the theater. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Special thanks to the following patrons, and for those interested, if you'd like to request reviews and more, links to PayPal and Patreon are down below in the description box. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at TheZeroCool. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.